Welcome back to the deep dive. I was walking down the street the other day and I overheard this guy on his phone. He was just screaming, full volume at someone who I'm guessing was his partner.
Oh, wow.
And he was saying these just deeply nasty, controlling things. And then right before he hung up, his voice just drops and he says, "Look, I'm only saying this because I love you."
That line.
And it stopped me in my tracks because it was such a perfect example of this massive, glaring contradiction we all live with. We use this one word, love, to cover everything from I love pepperoni pizza to I love my mom to, I love you, so I'm going to control your life.
It is probably the single most confusing and poorly defined word in the English language.
Right.
It's one that's absolutely everywhere. It's on billboards. It's in every pop song. Every movie plot hinges on it.
Yeah.
And yet, when you actually try to pin it down, when you try to define it in a way that isn't just fluff, it just slips right through your fingers.
Exactly. And that's why today is going to be a little different. We're not doing a self-help fluff piece. We are not talking about romance novels. We are doing a kind of forensic analysis of love. And to do that, we are diving into a book that I honestly think should be required reading for every single human being on the planet. It's all about love. New Visions by Bell Hooks.
Bell Hooks. A titan. I mean, just a powerhouse. She was a cultural critic, a feminist theorist, a professor, and really a visionary.
Absolutely.
And what makes this book so powerful, so different, is that she approaches love not as a poet, but as a critic.
Wow.
She puts on her analytical glasses and she looks at our society, our families, our politics, our relationships. And she basically says, we're doing this wrong. We're calling things love that are actually control or dependency or just plain abuse.
And she starts the book with this incredibly vivid, almost cinematic story from her own life that really, really sets the stakes. I want to paint the picture for you. It's the late 90s. She's a professor at Yale University. So you can picture it, right? The brick buildings, the ivy, the whole prestigious academic scene. But inside, Hooks is a wreck. She is going through a completely devastating breakup.
Yeah, a 15-year relationship. That's not a fling. That is a lifetime. That's a marriage in everything but the legal paperwork.
Everything but the name. And it's ending. So she's walking around New Haven just feeling that heavy physical weight of grief. You know that feeling where your chest actually hurts?
Oh, absolutely. It's like the color has been drained out of the world. Everything feels gray.
Totally. And she's walking to her office every single day, and she passes this construction site. And on those temporary wooden barriers, they put up, the plywood walls. Someone has spray painted a piece of graffiti. It's bright, multicolored. She says it looks almost childlike. And it says, "The search for love continues even in the face of great odds."
The search for love continues even in the face of great odds. Just imagine seeing that exact message at that exact moment in your life.
It's unbelievable.
For Hooks, she says it became a ritual. She would walk past it every morning and every evening. It was her anchor. It was this public declaration that, yes, this hurts, and yes, the odds are terrible, but we keep going. It validated her yearning. It told her she wasn't alone.
But then, and this is the metaphor that just drives the entire book, she walks by one day and it's gone.
Just gone.
The construction company, or maybe the university, had come in and just whitewashed the wall, painted right over it. And it wasn't like they cleaned up all the graffiti in the city. They specifically targeted that mural.
And the gossip on campus was so telling. The rumor was that the university got rid of it because they thought it might be a reference to HIV/AIDS, or maybe that the artist was gay.
And in the late 90s, that was still seen as too political.
Too political, too controversial, or just too...
That is just a perfect encapsulation of the whole problem, isn't it? We claim to value love, we sing about it, but the moment someone expresses the reality of it, the struggle, the pain, the marginalized voices reaching for it, society rushes in with a bucket of white paint to cover it all up.
Yes. We want the Disney version. We want the neat, tidy, romantic comedy version, not the messy, painful graffiti version.
Right.
And that whitewashing is exactly what Bell Hooks is fighting against in this book. She argues that we are fundamentally terrified of love. We treat it as a private, almost embarrassing subject. If you try to talk about love seriously in an academic setting or a boardroom, people look at you like you're soft.
Like you're not serious.
Exactly. They think you're talking about sentimentality, about fluff. But Hooks is here to say that love is the only thing that can actually save us, not just as couples, but as a culture.
So our mission for this deep dive is to scrape off that white paint. We're going to try to move love from being a noun, a vague, fuzzy feeling, to a verb, an action. We're going to look at why we're so bad at definitions, how our childhoods can set us up for failure, the absolute necessity of honesty, and finally, how to build what she calls a love ethic.
And just to be clear for everyone listening, everything we are discussing today comes directly from All About Love. Hooks draws on psychoanalysis, people like Erich Fromm and M. Scott Peck's sociology, philosophy, and her own memoirs. It's a dense text, but we're going to unpack it piece by piece.
So let's start at the very beginning, which, is usually the most boring part of a topic, but here it's actually the most explosive, the definition. Why is it so damn hard to define love?
Well, Hooks points out that if you walked into a room with 20 people and asked them to define love, you'd get 20 different answers. And most of them would be, tautologies. Love is, well, it's a feeling. Love is when you really, really like someone.
They're just circular definitions.
Exactly. She quotes Diane Ackerman's book, A Natural History of Love, where Ackerman calls love the great intangible.
The great intangible. I mean, that sounds beautiful. It sounds romantic and mysterious, like a fog that just rolls in and envelops you.
It does, and that's the trap. Hooks argues that this mystification, this idea of it being intangible, is actually dangerous.
How so?
Well, if love is just some mysterious force that visits us, then we have no agency. We have no responsibility. If I can't define it, then I can't be held accountable for not doing it.
Right.
It's like trying to bake a cake without a recipe and without even knowing what a cake is supposed to look or taste like. You just throw some stuff in a bowl and hope for the best.
And when the cake tastes like dirt, you can just shrug and say, well, the mystery of baking didn't visit me today.
Precisely. So Hooks goes on a hunt for a definition that is practical, a definition you can actually use as a guide for your behavior. And she lands on one from the psychiatrist M. Scott Peck from his book, The Road Less Traveled. And this definition is the absolute bedrock of her entire book.
Okay, I have it right here. And I want to read it slowly because, like you said, every single word counts. Peck defines love as the will to extend oneself for the purpose of nurturing one's own or another's spiritual growth.
Let's just chew on that for a second. The will to extend oneself.
Okay, first thing, the will.
Yes. Notice what's missing. There's no mention of butterflies. There's no mention of sexual attraction. There's no mention of liking the person even.
It centers everything on the will, which implies choice. It implies effort. It means I could be exhausted, I could be annoyed with you, I could be furious, but I can still choose to extend myself.
Exactly. Love is an act of will. It is an intention and, crucially, an action. You do not fall into it. You choose to do it.
Okay, and then the second half. For the purpose of nurturing one's own or another's spiritual growth.
So the action has a goal.
A very specific goal, nurturing spiritual growth, which means if what you are doing is tearing someone down or holding them back or shrinking their world, even if you have incredibly intense feelings for them, you are not loving them according to this definition. That is a very, very high bar.
It's a high bar, but it's a clear one.
Okay, so this brings us to a concept that I found really helpful and honestly a little confronting, the difference between cathexis and love. Because I think a lot of us, myself included, have spent our lives confusing these two.
Oh, absolutely. This is a game changer. Cathexis is a psychoanalytic term.
Yeah.
It basically means the concentration of mental or emotional energy on one person or object. It's that feeling of being hooked.
So it's the obsession.
It's the obsession. It's when you can't stop thinking about them, when you feel that intense magnetic pull that is cathexis, you are investing your energy.
Okay, so when I was a teenager and I was in love with that girl who barely knew I existed, and I wrote bad poetry and thought about her 2004-7, that was not love.
That was a textbook case of cathexis. You were investing a ton of energy, but were you nurturing her spiritual growth? Were you even really interacting with her as a real person? Probably not. You were interacting with a fantasy you projected onto her.
Right, wow.
And Hooks argues that most of us confuse that feeling of cathexis with love. We think the feeling of the investment, that obsessive energy, is the love itself.
And this explains so much. It explains why people stay in toxic or abusive relationships, doesn't it? Because the cathexis, that feeling of connection, can be incredibly strong even when the actual treatment is terrible.
This is the most critical insight in the first section of the book. You can feel intense cathexis towards someone who is hurting you. You can feel emotionally bound to them, addicted to them even, but, and Hooks is absolutely uncompromising on this, you cannot love someone who is abusive, and they cannot love you while they're abusing you.
That is a hard pill to swallow for a lot of people. I mean, how many times have we all heard someone say, my dad was tough, he hit us, but he loved us? Or a partner saying, I know he gets aggressive sometimes, but he really loves me.
Hooks says that is a lie we tell ourselves to survive. a survival mechanism, but it is factually untrue based on the definition.
So love and abuse they're mutually exclusive.
They are polar opposites. Abuse, whether it's physical hitting or verbal shaming or emotional neglect, is the opposite of nurturance. You cannot nurture someone's growth by harming them.
It's a logical contradiction?
It's like saying, I'm watering this plant by pouring bleach on it because I love it. No, you're not. The bleach kills the plant. The intent might be complicated, the cathexis might be real, but the love, the action of nurturance, is not happening.
I think that distinction that the feeling is real, the cathexis is real, but the love is absent, that alone could save a lot of people years of pain and confusion. It validates that you aren't crazy for feeling attached, but it clarifies that the attachment isn't the same as healthy love.
Precisely. And if we accept that love's about behavior, not just feeling, then we have to look at where we learned to define love in the first place. Which brings us to what Hooks calls the original school of love.
The family.
The family.
You know, we have this cultural mythology that the family is this sacred safe haven. You see it on posters, right? Family is everything. But Hooks takes a sledgehammer to that idea.
She does.
She argues that for many people, the family isn't the first place they learn about love. It's the first place they learn about power.
And specifically, she critiques the modern nuclear family structure. She calls it authoritarian. And if you think about it, it often is. In a traditional nuclear family, the parents, and often specifically the father in a patriarchal system, have absolute rule. It's a tiny dictatorship.
The children have no rights.
No rights. There's no Supreme Court of the household where a kid can appeal a decision. And because our culture values privacy so much, what happens in this house stays in this house. What happens behind those closed doors stays there with no outside intervention.
She even uses the word fascistic to describe some households, which sounds extreme, but when you lay it out like that, absolute power, arbitrary rules, the use of physical punishment, it kind of fits.
It does. And in this environment, children are often taught a really terrible lesson. That love and violence go hand in hand. The classic line, I'm hitting you because I love you, or this hurts me more than it hurts you.
Which is just a crazy thing to say to a child you're hurting.
It's profoundly confusing, and it sets them up to accept that confusion in their adult relationships.
There's this scene in the book, I think it's one of the most memorable anecdotes in the whole thing, where Hooks is at a dinner party. And you can just imagine this scene. It's a nice house, good food, everyone is well-dressed, successful, probably holding glasses of wine.
Right, a very civilized adult setting.
And the conversation turns to childhood discipline.
Yeah.
And instead of it being this somber, serious discussion, people start bragging.
They start laughing and swapping war stories about being whipped or hit with belts or pinched. They're almost competing to see who had it worse. Oh, my dad used the buckle. Well, my mom used a wooden spoon.
Bragging, like it's a badge of honor.
Yes, because in their minds, that violence made them who they are today. It made me tough. It taught me respect. They're rationalizing and justifying the trauma. And Hooks is just sitting there, probably gripping her wine glass, and she's the buzzkill. She's the only one not laughing.
And she speaks up.
She does. She says something like, that's not love, that's violence. And it taught you to accept violence from people who claim to care about you. And you can just imagine the silence that falls over that room.
Oh, man. The record scratch.
Totally. She describes being completely isolated. Even a young mother there, who considers herself progressive and modern, admits that she pinches her son until he cries to get the message across.
That is just chilling. Because what Hooks is identifying is that we are socialized from our first school of love to believe that coercion is a valid form of love. If I can force you to do what I want, that's okay, because I'm the parent.
And then we grow up and we take that exact dynamic into our romantic relationships. If you love me, you do what I want. It's about control, not nurturance.
Right. But Hooks does offer a glimmer of hope here. She talks about the concept of enlightened witnesses.
I love this term. It sounds so spiritual.
It does.
It actually comes from the psychoanalyst Alice Miller. An enlightened witness is anyone, who steps into that dysfunctional system and breaks the spell. It could be a grandparent, a teacher, a neighbor, an aunt. Someone who treats the child with genuine respect, someone who listens.
For Hooks, it was her grandfather, wasn't it?
Yes. Her own father was very authoritarian, very scary. But her grandfather gave her a different model of masculinity. He showed her that men could be gentle. He showed her that her voice mattered. And Hooks says that sometimes that one person is enough. Just having one person show you what actual love looks like, nurturing, respectful, kind, can save you. It proves that your parents' version isn't the only version in the world.
So, okay, we survived childhood. hopefully with an enlightened witness or two, and we enter the adult world. But now we face a new barrier. And Hook says this one is insidious because it's something we do to ourselves. Lying.
There can be no intimacy without truth. That is the headline for this entire section. And it sounds so obvious, right? Don't lie. But Hooks argues that we live in a culture of systemic, pervasive dishonesty.
I mean, we lie constantly about small things. How are you? I'm fine. Even when you're not. Does this look good? Yeah, it's great. We lie to keep the peace. We lie to look better.
But Hooks goes much deeper than those little white lies. She breaks it down by gender. And this analysis is really, really fascinating. She draws on a book called The End of Manhood by John Stoltenberg to look at how men are taught to lie.
Okay, let's get into the men first. Because the stereotype is that men are straight shooters, right? They say what they mean.
That's the myth. But Hooks argues that patriarchy as a system forces men to live a fundamental lie. To be a real man in a patriarchal culture, you have to sever yourself from your feelings. You have to metaphorically kill the sad, scared little boy inside you. You can't show fear. You can't show weakness. You can't show need.
So the lie isn't just telling your wife you were at the office when you're at the bar. The lie is the entire persona, the performance of manhood.
Exactly. It's what some people call the cool pose. Men are often in what Hooks calls a trance state regarding their own emotions. They don't even know what they feel, so how can they possibly tell the truth about it?
They lied to themselves first.
Yes, I'm not hurt, I'm angry, I'm not lonely, I'm just horny. And if you can't be honest with yourself, you cannot be intimate with anyone else. You are offering them a mask, not a man. A carefully constructed false self.
And what about women? Because the stereotype there is that women are the emotional and open ones.
But Hooks draws on Harriet Lerner's work, The Dance of Deception, to show that women are socialized to lie for very different reasons. Women often lie to manage men's emotions. We lie to protect his fragile ego.
Like faking orgasms.
Faking orgasms is the classic example, but also pretending to be less smart or less capable so you don't threaten him. Or we use manipulation and indirectness because we feel like we don't have direct power.
It's the strategy of the powerless. I can't just tell you what I want because that might cause a fight, so I have to trick you or hint at it to get it.
Right. And the result, for both men and women, is this tragic masquerade ball. If I present a false self to you, this mask, and you fall in love with that mask, I am still profoundly lonely. Because deep down, I know you don't love me. You love the performance.
And you have to live in constant terror that the mask will slip and you'll be found out, that they'll see the real, messy, needy person underneath and leave.
And that deep, knowing loneliness, that fear, makes us incredibly vulnerable to the next big trap Hooks identifies, the substitute for love, consumerism.
Ah, okay. This is where she comes for the me generation.
She absolutely does. She traces this cultural shift from the 60s and 70s, where there was at least a public rhetoric of peace and love and communal living, to the 80s and 90s, where greed is good became the unironic mantra.
The era of, I shop, therefore I am.
Precisely. Hooks argues that when we gave up on the hard work of love, because, as we've established, real love is very hard work, we replaced it with the easy, quick hit of consumption. Buying things feels good. It gives you a little dopamine rush. It can even look like care. I'm treating myself. I'm buying this expensive gift for you to show I care.
But the objects can't love you back. The new car doesn't care if you had a bad day.
No. And Hooks brings in Stanton Peele, who writes about addiction. And he has this brilliant insight. Addiction is not about relatedness. In fact, it's the opposite.
It's about isolation.
Yes. Whether you are addicted to heroin or work or shopping, the addiction demands that you prioritize the object of your addiction over people. You cannot truly love a person if you are more committed to your high, whatever that high is, than you are to their spiritual growth.
There's a really striking example she uses in the book where she interviews the rapper Lil' Kim. And you have to remember, this is late 90s Lil' Kim. She is on top of the world. She's a fashion icon, a music icon.
Absolutely the queen bee. And Hooks is interviewing her, and she asks her about love. And Kim basically just shrugs it off. She said she has no time for it. She's focused on the money. She's focused on the hustle.
She sees love as a weakness.
A weakness, a distraction, or something that just gets you hurt. For her, the money, the diamonds, the fame, that was the goal. That was real. Love was intangible and therefore not worth the investment.
And Hooks doesn't tell that story to judge Lil' Kim. She tells it to show us a mirror. Lil' Kim was just being the perfect capitalist subject. She was doing exactly what our society told her to do. Get the bag, secure the assets. Who needs a soul when you have a platinum record?
Right. Society applauds Lil' Kim for that. We call her a girl boss or an icon. But Hooks forces us to look at the spiritual poverty there. If you are rich but emotionally hollow, if you view people only as stepping stones or transactions, you are living a loveless life. And Hooks argues we desperately need a love ethic to counter this.
A love ethic, that sounds like a policy proposal or something.
In a way, it is. A love ethic means seeing all life as interconnected. It means making decisions, personal and political, based on the well-being of the collective, not just the profit of the individual.
So it's a rejection of that cynical, it's a dog-eat-dog world mentality.
It's a total rejection.
Yeah.
Okay, says, no, it's a world where if you starve your neighbor's dog, eventually that dog might bite you.
Yeah.
We are all connected. You can't be truly well if your community is sick.
And this idea of interconnectedness leads us naturally to her thoughts on community. Because, and I'll admit, I'm guilty of this, when I hear the word love, my brain usually defaults to thinking about romance. I think about finding the one.
And that is the problem. She says we are obsessed with the couple. We put all of our emotional eggs into one single basket. We expect our one romantic partner to be our lover, our best friend, our therapist, our financial co-planner, our co-parent, and our spiritual guru.
That is an impossible amount of pressure for one human being. Honey, you forgot to take out the trash and you didn't heal my deep-seated childhood trauma today.
It's impossible. No one can sustain that pressure. Hooks argues that this intense isolation of the couple is a recipe for disaster. She advocates for a circle of love. And she says friendship is actually the best school for love.
Why friendships specifically?
Well, think about your best friend. You probably don't try to control what they wear. You don't get possessively jealous if they talk to other people. You accept their quirks. You want them to be happy even if it doesn't involve you. You chose them freely without all the legal and financial entanglement.
Right. It's a much purer relationship in some ways.
That dynamic of respect, freedom, choice, that is what love should look like. But the moment we get into a romantic context, we start introducing ideas of ownership and jealousy and control.
So she's saying we should treat our romantic partners more like we treat our best friends.
Yes. We should have a community that supports us so the partner doesn't have to carry the entire load. Hooks herself lived in a cooperative apartment building. She believed in extended kin networks. If you have 5 people you can call when you're crying, you don't burn out your spouse.
Now, speaking of these romantic dynamics, we have to take a quick detour into pop culture because Hooks takes some pretty direct shots at a very, very famous book. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus.
Oh, she absolutely eviscerates John Gray. It's brutal.
That book was a phenomenon. It was everywhere. Why does she hate it so much?
Because it's lazy. The entire premise of Mars and Venus is that men and women are fundamentally biologically alien to each other. Men need to retreat to their cave. Women need to talk about their feelings. It suggests that we can never truly understand each other, so the best we can do is just manage each other's weird alien behaviors.
It gives everyone a pass to not do the work. The guy can just say, hey, sorry, I'm a Martian, I can't talk about feelings, and the woman can say, well, I'm a Venusian, I'm supposed to be irrational.
Exactly. It normalizes sexism and calls it nature. Hooks says, we are not from different planets. We are from Earth. We're just socialized differently. And if we are socialized, we can be re-socialized. We can all learn to be better. We can learn to communicate.
This leads to her concept of mutuality, which sounds like the antidote to the whole Mars-Venus thing.
It is. Mutuality relies on a powerful insight from Carl Jung. Where the will to power is paramount, love will be lacking. You cannot have love if one person has power over the other.
So the traditional deal, I make the money, so I make the rules. Or I'm the one who provides care, so I control the emotional tone of the house. That's not love. That's just a transaction.
That's a business deal, a power arrangement. True mutuality means both parties are equally committed to the spiritual growth of the other. It means men have to do the emotional work they've been socialized to think of as women's work. It means women have to let go of the desire to manipulate or change men. It means meeting as equals, with no masks.
Okay, we've delayed it long enough. We have to talk about romance itself. Because even though Hooks critiques our obsession with it, she doesn't dismiss it. She writes really beautifully about sweet love. But she starts by attacking the very language we use, the phrase falling in love.
She hates that phrase, falling. Just think about the imagery. If you fall, it's an accident. You trip, you get hurt. Gravity takes over. You are a victim of physics.
I couldn't help it. I just fell.
It completely implies a lack of responsibility. And Hooks is all about responsibility and choice. She says you don't fall in love. You choose to love. You build love.
But what about that initial spark, the chemistry, the click you feel with someone? Is that not real?
Oh, she acknowledges that it's real,
Yeah.
but she gives it a different name. She calls that perfect passion. That's the rush. That's the cathexis. That's the projection. You meet someone, they look great, they laugh at your jokes, and you instantly project all your hopes and dreams onto them.
You're not actually in love with them.
You don't know them yet.
Yeah.
You're in love with a fantasy of them.
Yeah.
That's the honeymoon phase.
So then what is perfect love?
Perfect love is what happens when the passion inevitably fades. When you wake up and realize they have morning breath and they leave wet towels on the floor and they have anxieties that really annoy you. When you see the real person flaws and all and you still say, I choose to nurture your growth. That is love. Passion is the spark. Love is the fire you have to intentionally tend every day.
She tells a personal story in this section that I found really confusing at first, but the more I thought about it, the more profound it became. The dream story.
This is a great story, and it challenges so many of our assumptions. So Hooks has this vivid, erotic dream about a total stranger, a man she's never met. It's incredibly intense. She wakes up feeling this deep soul connection to a man in a dream.
And then, like a scene out of a movie, she goes to a conference, and there he is.
It's him, the guy from the dream,
Hmm.
and they meet. And the sparks fly. They have this incredible hours-long conversation. They feel like they've known each other for lifetimes. It is the perfect setup for the perfect romance novel ending.
But then comes the plot twist. The reality check.
He's in a committed relationship. He loves his partner. He's not available.
So in a rom-com, this is where she fights for him, or he suddenly leaves his partner, or they have a tragic secret affair.
But Hooks does none of that.
Yeah.
She accepts the reality of the situation. They don't get together. They don't have sex. They don't get married. But, and here's the radical lesson, she says the encounter still changed her life. It opened her heart. It made her feel alive again. She realized that a true love or a soul connection doesn't require possession.
That is a massive mental shift. We are taught that if you love something, you must own it. You have to put a ring on it. You have to claim it.
Hooks says that is the capitalist view of love. I see it, I want it, I buy it. But the spiritual view is I see it, I appreciate it, I let it transform me, and I let it be. She experienced the profound love without needing to consume or possess the other person.
And that distinction between love and consumption also applies directly to sex. She's very, very blunt about the difference between eroticism and love.
She is. She says we are constantly confusing the two. Men, especially, are taught that sex is the way they achieve intimacy. They are led by the penis, as she puts it, often to partners they don't even like or respect, just to get that physical release and feeling of connection.
And women often trade sex for the hope of love.
Exactly. If I sleep with him, maybe he'll stay. But Hooks is clear. Erotic pleasure is wonderful, but it is not love. You can have great sex with someone you despise. You can have great sex with someone who abuses you. We have to stop assuming that just because the sex is good, the relationship is healthy or loving.
We're coming to the final section of the book, and honestly, this is the heaviest part, but it's also in a way the most beautiful. Loss, death, and healing.
You can't talk seriously about love without talking about death. They are two sides of the same coin.
But our culture tries so desperately to hide death, to pretend it doesn't exist.
Hooks calls it our death culture. And it's a paradox. On one hand, we are obsessed with death-dealing forces. Look at our movies. They're filled with guns, explosions, violence. Look at our foreign policy. We are very comfortable with killing.
But on the other hand, we are terrified of dying.
Terrified. We hide the elderly in homes. We hide the sick in hospitals.
Yeah.
We sanitize funerals. We don't talk about grief. We tell people to get over it.
She quotes the monk Thomas Merton, who says, "We're guilty of necrophilia, a love of death. Because loving life biophilia is actually too scary."
That's it. Loving life fully means accepting that it ends. If you really truly love someone, you are signing a contract that says one day one of us will lose the other and it will destroy me. That vulnerability is terrifying. So we choose the numbness of death culture instead. We choose power and control over vulnerability.
But Hook says we have to embrace the grief. We have to turn towards it.
She says grief is just love with nowhere to go. It is a form of commitment. When you grieve, you are honoring the love you had. And she argues that because love knows no shame, then grief should have no shame either. We should be able to wail, to cry, to fall apart in public, and be held and supported by our community, not shushed.
She shares the story from Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, the famous researcher on death and dying that just brought this whole idea home for me. The story of the hospital cleaning lady.
I love this story so much. So Kubler-Ross is working in a hospital, and she starts to notice something strange. There was this one cleaning woman on the ward, and whenever this woman goes into the room of a patient who is actively dying, the patient seems to calm down. The anxiety in the room drops. The fear dissipates.
Doctors couldn't do it. The nurses with all their medicine couldn't do it. What was this cleaning lady doing?
So Kubler-Ross followed her to find out. And she realized the woman wasn't doing anything medical. She wasn't offering false hope or platitudes. She was just there. She would hold their hand. She would smooth the sheets. She would look them in the eye without fear.
Because she had befriended death?
Yes. She had lost her own children. She had lost her husband. She had walked through the absolute fire of grief, and she had survived. So when she walked into that room, she wasn't afraid of their dying. The patients could feel her stability. She was a living example that death isn't the end of love. She brought a sense of deep presence.
And that presence is what the Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh talked about, living consciously in the present moment.
Exactly. If we can accept that death is always walking beside us, it doesn't have to be morbid. It's actually what wakes us up. It's what makes the colors brighter. It makes me look at you and say, I don't have forever with you, so I'm going to love you right now. I'm not going to wait until I get that promotion. I'm not going to wait until we lose 10 pounds. I'm going to choose to extend myself for your growth today.
Wow,
Yes, it
it is a lot. We've covered definitions, childhood trauma, lying, greed, community, romance, and death. It really feels like we've taken apart the entire engine of human life and tried to put it back together.
That is what Bell Hooks does. She deconstructs the world we've been given so that we can rebuild it with intention.
So before we let everyone go, let's try to crystallize this. If someone is listening to this while driving or doing the dishes, and they want to take the deep dive version of love with them, what are the core pillars?
I think you could boil it down to 5 pillars of the Hooksian love ethic. Number 1, love is a verb. It is not a feeling. It is the active will to nurture growth. So stop waiting to fall. Start choosing to do.
Okay. Number 2, love and abuse are incompatible. You cannot hurt someone and claim to love them. If it hurts, it's not love. Draw that line for yourself and for others.
Number 3, truth is the prerequisite. You cannot be intimate with a mask. You have to risk being known, truly known, to be loved.
Number 4, expand the circle. Stop trying to get everything from one single romantic partner. Build friendships, build community, create a real safety net of love.
And number 5, love casts out fear.
Perfect love casts out fear.
Fear is the root of dominance. Fear of the other, fear of loss, fear of not being enough. Love is the only force strong enough to really push back against that fear.
So here is the final provocation, the new vision from the book's title.
Imagine if we took this seriously, not just as a personal self-help tip, but as a guiding principle for our society. Imagine if politicians made policies based on a love ethic valuing human well-being over corporate profit. Imagine if schools were built on a love ethic nurturing growth, rather than just enforcing obedience. Imagine if we designed our cities for connection instead of isolation.
It sounds utopian. It sounds like a dream.
It does. But Hooks insists it is the only pragmatic way forward. A culture without a love ethic will eventually eat itself. Greed will consume everything. Violence will destroy everything. The love ethic is not soft. It is survival.
And the beauty of it is you don't have to wait for the government to change to get started.
No. You can start 10 minutes from now. You can choose to be loving to the cashier at the grocery store. You can choose to be honest with your partner tonight. You can choose to forgive yourself for past failures. You can define love, and then you can choose to offer it.
Bell Hooks left us the map. It's up to us to actually walk the road.
The search for love continues.
Even in the face of great odds. Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll see you next time.